Greetings, YouTube. Um, One of the current lines of BS that's floating around the mainstream media at this minute, and that covers news on the radio, television, online, newspapers, doesn't matter, is that they're using the term quiet quitting. That's a softball term for something that businesses hate. Because what quiet quitting means, it means work to rule. Now, that's a concept that has been used by labor for a very long time to push back against capital, push back against management. Because what it says is that I will do exactly what you pay me for. And that's it. That's all I will do. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing immoral. There's nothing ethical. There's nothing illegal about doing exactly what you get paid for. But they can't say that. They can't say, well, we don't like it when our employees work to rule. We prefer to exploit them and get them to do work for free. That's a narrative that doesn't go so well, even in on Fox News. No. So they put it in the terms of quiet quitting, that people aren't quitting their jobs. They're just not doing the job that the bosses want them to do, which is different than the job they're paid to do. Now, I've discussed the conundrum, the paradox of capitalism on my channel many times, because all capitalists want employees that cost them nothing. They want free labor. They want slaves. However, they want consumers who have an unlimited amount of spending money. And they've never seemed to be able to figure out that everyone's employee is somebody else's consumer. Occasionally, you could even be a consumer of your own company. So if you don't have money, you can't consume. So the best thing for the entire economy is to make sure that every single employee is earning a thriving wage. Not just a living wage, a thriving wage. That way they have extra income. That way they're comfortable in their housing and their food and their health insurance and their education, and their debt is reasonable, and then they can then have spending money and go buy stuff. They can go invest in things. That would be the ideal. But they can't admit that because, again, they keep pushing the narrative that they want employees that cost them nothing. So when an employee gets hired and the employee does exactly what they're paid to do, that is something that undermines the narrative of we deserve free labor. There's a guy I follow on Instagram whose name escapes me at the moment because I'm not good at that, who's a labor lawyer. And he talks about this all the time, about how businesses steal money from employees. In fact, and I didn't get this from him, I picked this up somewhere else, every single day, businesses in America steal $137 million from employees. They do this by having people work off the clock, by having them work through their breaks, not giving them their breaks, about doing things, for example, like at a restaurant. If it's slow, having the employees clock out, but then telling them they can't leave. No. If you're there, you have to get paid, even if it's slow. If you're at a restaurant and it just happens to be that nobody wants to come to your restaurant that day, you still have to get paid. I know that the person that owns the restaurant doesn't want to pay you. Too bad. That's the risk that is implied in the concept of capitalism. Sometimes, the dice roll in your favor and sometimes the dice don't. But you don't get to screw the employees just because the dice go against you. They'd like to be able to screw you. That's kind of their business plan. It's why they, sometimes they'll fire someone or the person quits and they won't hire somebody new. They'll just spread that work around other people, expecting their employees who are still getting the same amount of money to do more work. Don't do that. I've seen that over the years. And I have pushed back against it. It's made me somewhat unpopular with the management of my company on more than one occasion. I even have gone to the extent of getting a doctor's note saying that I only work 40 hours a week. because for 6 months, my boss forced me to work 6 days a week. And by having 50% as much recovery time and 20% more labor every week, it destroyed my goddamn hands. It gave me early onset of arthritis. So even if I were to hit the lottery tomorrow and never work again, I am still going to be in pain for the rest of my life. Everything I do hurts. Opening a bottle of water can hurt me. Trying to open a bag of chips can cause me pain. Picking up a container of can cause me injury, can hurt me. Why? Because they exploited me. They forced me to work. Mandatory overtime should be illegal in my book. So I get a medical note saying I only have to work 40 hours a week, and that's what I do. I work 40 hours a week. No more, no less. I'm there every day on time, and I punch out every day on time. I do my job. I'm the lead, and I'm good at it. I make sure that everything I can do on my shift is done properly. I make sure that I set up every single operator that's going to come in after my folks for success. That's my job, and I do it. I just don't do anything else. And that's not quiet quitting. That's working to rule. And that's what we should all do. So don't listen to this bullshit narrative about quiet quitting, because that's what it is, bullshit. Because if they actually couched it in the terms of what it is, working to rule, that would sound very bad when they publicly said, we don't want people to work to rule, we want people to be exploited. We want them to do work for us and not get paid. No, don't work for people unless they pay you. Take your breaks, take your PTO, and if your boss says bullshit like, well, take the team into consideration when you put in for your personal time off. No, that's their job. If they can't make a schedule, if they haven't hired enough people, that's not your problem. That's a them problem. You've got the time off, take the time off. You've earned it. It's part of your compensation. Don't work for free. Don't kill yourself. Your health is something you may never get back. You may never get that stress relieved completely. The damage you do to yourself by overstressing yourself could last forever. So don't. Work to rule. And don't listen to that bullshit narrative about quiet quitting.